Hello and welcome. I'm Steve Parkins, the director of Mack Trucks Academy and Volvo Trucks Academy. Thank you for joining us today. We know that you have a very busy schedule and we appreciate you taking the time out to be with us today. Before we go much further, I just want to do an audio check to make sure audio's coming through. I'm getting a thumbs up from the audio board, so it looks like everybody's hearing me. Well, once again, welcome to the next version of Academy Live. We're very excited about today's edition of Academy Live. Our team is going to be diving into a tool that's very important to our uptime and our service technicians. It's the Premium Tech tool. We have a lot of really exciting content to get to, and some of the information you're going to hear today is just really new, brand new. You're going to be hearing about things that are coming within the next couple of weeks. So the purpose of these Academy Live sessions is to bring new information, critical business information, to large volumes of people in our dealer network. We have hundreds of you online right now, and you've already signed in, so we know that we're reaching a broad audience. We want to give you timely, critical information in a way that you can engage with us. So as we go through today's conversation with you, we want to make sure that you're engaging with questions. So could I ask some of you to just go to the questions box and just type in a question or a little comment, maybe your name. I just want to see if the question box is working. We got anybody just type in your name or say, "We hear you, Steve, things are functioning." All right, I'm getting some thumbs up from my production team, so that's great. We want you to keep that questions box open, keep the dialogue coming. We have people to receive those questions. We'll be putting them to our subject matter experts so that we can answer in real time. These are supposed to be live, engaging experiences for you. So all of these, of course, however, are being recorded, and they will be available on Trucks Dealer Portal under the Training tab, sub-tab, Academy Live. So you can go there and review the information if you need to, or share it with others who are unable to attend today's live event. So that's it. That's the setup. I'm excited to pass this on to our Senior Manager of Technical Training, part of our Academy team, Dave Brown. Take it away.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome, everyone. My name's David Brown. I'm the Senior Manager of Technical Training for the Trucks Academy. I'm joined here today in our live studio space with Larry Miller, who is our Performance Improvement Manager for Technical Training with Trucks Academy. Also joining us in the studio space, we have James Adams and Godfrey Gale with us. They work with the verification team for Premium Tech Tool, and they will be acting as subject matter experts for today's Academy Live broadcast. So again, exciting stuff. We have a lot of new items to share with you today. A lot of the things that we're going to be discussing and showcasing in today's Academy Live broadcast are new. They're literally in the deployment stages, so these are items that you will be receiving shortly at your dealership if you have not already. So we're talking about not only Premium Tech Tool 2.8, which is the latest version of the software, but we're also going to be showcasing some hardware that hasn't been released, but again is in the final stages of deployment. So this is some new hardware that you'll be receiving shortly at your dealership. So a lot of exciting content in today's Academy Live broadcast. So again, we're glad to have you with us. We're glad that you joined us, and we'd like to go ahead and get started. Godfrey is here in the studio with me, and he's sitting directly to my right. And again, since we're on the topic of Premium Tech Tool 2.8 and communication adapters and some of the new hardware that's being released to go along with 2.8, I thought it would be best if we started with a conversation about the communication adapters that we have used with Premium Tech Tool since its release. And so we have a few examples of the latest communication adapters. And I'm going to ask Godfrey, if you wouldn't mind showing the audience, like we have the original Vocom adapter, I believe, here with us today, right? So this was what we typically refer to as Vocom 1, maybe?
Correct, Dave. So this is the Vocom 1. Everybody has used this in the past. With it, you would have to order the cables. So it starts with the USB cables that you can see here that would connect to the PC as well as to the Vocom unit itself. And then once you've connected that to the Vocom unit, you will then take from the Vocom unit to, for example, a OBD vehicle. So you'd have your connection to the PC, to the adapter unit, and then to the OBD connector on the truck. So those are the original cables that came with the Vocom 1 unit as well.
Perfect. And so dealers or customers that are utilizing TechTool, they would have to buy this communication adapter, and then the cables obviously have to be purchased as well. Stepping forward, we came out with a new communication adapter, or a newer communication adapter, and so currently today we would be referring to this as the Vocom 2, or sometimes we call this, and you may hear it referred to as the Vocom Tough in today's Academy live presentation, because as you're going to learn here in just a moment, there's actually a newer communication adapter that we're going to be showing you that is, again, in the final stages of deployment, so you'll be receiving those shortly. But so this is Vocom 2 or Vocom Tough. And then lastly...
Well, before we go to the new one, Dave, we've had this Vocom 2 and the original Vocom cable. We've talked about this USB cord. And one of the complaints that we've received from day one has been how rigid this cable is. So one of the new things that we've talked about doing is introducing a new USB adapter. So what we would like for you to be able to do is purchase any USB cable. We will provide the specs that we would like for you to use for this cable. Once you've purchased that, you should be able to just insert this in. It has a very snug connection. This will now go into your Vocom unit and to your PC. And this will help save cost and flexibility with the cable, much lighter, much more flexible to use. And you'll be able to purchase that instead of purchasing the original USB cable that came out with this.
So again, this is new for our audience, this adapter that you're referring to, right? Because with previous communication adapters like the Vocom 2, you have to use the rigid cable. And again, that's a common source of feedback that we get from service technicians and service managers, is that the cable itself is very rigid, and it puts a lot of stress on the USB port and the motherboard, I guess, of the laptop that they're using, right, with the communication adapter. So having a more flexible USB cable would certainly be a value for them.
Correct.
Cool. So the adapter is new, right? The USB cable adapter is new. The Vocom 2, now the cables that you were showing that go between the vehicle and the adapter, those can be used on both the Vocom 1 and the Vocom 2, right? So those are interchangeable. You don't have to buy new cables when you upgrade to the Vocom 2, right? Those are reusable. And then the newest adapter, which I see you have in your hand, you're ready to demonstrate or showcase. All right, this is the Vocom Mini. So again, for those of you that are tuned in today, this is the newest communication device that will work with Premium TechTool. And so the launch of TechTool 2.8 and the launch of this newest piece of hardware, the Vocom Mini, were intentionally timed to kind of release together. And so you will see an announcement here in the very near future with part number and ordering information for Vocom Mini. I believe it's going to be announced. There'll be bulletins, and it probably will be, the information will be made available, I'm assuming, on www.premiumtechtool.com as well. So very exciting. In fact, we're going to be utilizing the Vocom Mini for today's live demonstration. We're here in the studio with a truck. We're going to actually connect to the truck live with Premium TechTool, and we're going to share the screen. So you'll actually get to see 2.8 in operation with the latest Vocom Mini communication adapter. And so James will be taking us through that here in just a moment. Before we do that, though, before we get into the live demonstration, I just wanted to pause for one moment. Larry, do we have any questions coming in at all from the audience? Just want to make sure before we get too far into the presentation. Again, if you have questions about anything that you see in today's broadcast, again, please place them into the chat box. We will be capturing all of the questions, and we will answer all of the questions probably within the week after the broadcast. So if you have questions, feel free to place those in the chat box. We will answer them as time permits, and if those that we cannot answer, we will address those after the broadcast. Larry?
Yeah, Dave, as you said, we have quite a few questions. We'll try to grab as many as we possibly can. We have a question. What is the part number for the USB adapter?
Do we have a part number established for that USB adapter? I'm assuming they're talking about the one that has the ability to use a generic aftermarket cable, I guess a USB cable.
Yes, we do have that unit. It is 888-94010, and that, like they said, is coming soon.
Could you repeat that one more time? Just 888?
Sure thing. 888-94010.
Perfect. That's a great question. Cool. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, I'd like to, I guess, proceed to the live demonstration. So the first step, obviously, when you're going to connect a Premium Tech Tool to a truck, you have to install the communication adapter has to be installed and configured properly on your laptop. So, James, I was wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit about that process. What's involved in attaching the communication adapter to the laptop?
Sure, Dave. I've got an adapter here in my hand, same as Godfrey was showing. This is the Vocom Mini. No wires, so you've got to configure it and set it up to get started. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in to the truck. And it takes a few seconds for it to find the Wi-Fi signal and connect to the PC. We don't use Bluetooth, we're using Wi-Fi. So right now I'm connected through my infrastructure, my network. It goes up to the network, the PC goes up to the network, and we're able to see this connection. Already, if you can share my screen, we can see where it's connected through the Vocom 2 configurator. This works with both the Vocom Tough and the Vocom Mini. Same configurator works with both. This is included with TechTool. So when you get your premium TechTool installed, this comes with it. We can look here and see the connection type, WLAN. We can see what network I'm on and the signal strength. So as long as I've got a good signal, in this case excellent, I can connect, I can do whatever I need to do, including programming through the Vocom Mini.
I'm glad you bring that up, this configurator program. We receive lots of questions about that from technicians. That's actually part of the Premium Tech Tool suite. When you install the Tech Tool application on your laptop, correct?
That's correct, yes.
That comes bundled with the software. So if you have Tech Tool installed, you have the configurator already installed on your laptop, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then another,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another question that we receive frequently from service technicians regarding the configurator, instructions, is there a document anywhere that maybe outlines, because again, service technicians typically are not IT professionals. We're getting into wireless settings and some other very technical things. Is there a document anywhere that outlines how to configure and how to set up the wireless for the Vocom?
That's a great question, Dave. So the configuration is done under the configuration tab. And this is where you can go and set up to your wireless network at your dealer. And setting it up for the first time can be a little bit daunting at best. Everybody's setup can be a little bit unique. What we've got are generalized instructions. If we go to the top left and we go to the help, and here we can find information about setting up the Vocom. The Vocom Tough is in here now. The Vocom Mini will be installed soon. But also we're going to have a video that we load to premiumtechtool.com that explains in pretty straightforward terms how to set up the Vocom Mini.
Perfect. And for those of you that are tuned in today, if you're not familiar with the website, www.premiumtechtool.com, I would encourage you at some point to go there and familiarize yourself with that site. It's an amazing resource. You can find firmware updates, driver updates. There's a training tab. In fact, we're going to be demonstrating this a little bit later in the broadcast, but there's a tab there with training materials, and there's videos and PDFs on how to do a whole host of different actions surrounding communication adapters, premium tech tool functions, routines. So again, it's a great resource. Check that out when you have time. So the VOCOM mini instructions will be included in the help document, and then also there'll be resources placed on the website. Perfect.
Yes. Also want to add here too, Dave, if you've got an error with your VOCOM adapter, we've got a status indicator that would show us the error message and what we can possibly do about it. The most common error message we get has to do with the truck batteries being low. Also, there's a test tab. We can go to the test tab, run the test, and it'll go out and check my connectivity back to the truck.
This is amazing. So it's actually demonstrating live, right, your connection to the various data links within the truck. We see the speed ratings there, the 9,600 kilobits per second. Obviously, it's referring to your J1587 data link. And then we see the 250 kilobits per second and 500. So obviously, CAN 1, CAN 2, we're referring to the J1939 primary data link used throughout the vehicle, and then the ISO or J2284, which is our high-speed data link that was installed in newer trucks, right? So the newest data link that we've added to the electronic architecture, TIA 2 Plus. Perfect. That's amazing.
That's correct, Dave. And this is my go-to operation. If I'm having connectivity issues trying to connect to the truck, I go here and look and make sure that everything's working, and I can actually run that test to see if I've got connectivity. So next, we'll minimize this. We'll open up TechTool. I'll put in my user ID and password.
Now, while you're on this screen, another question that we receive from service technicians frequently, the synchronize user profile box that is currently unchecked. How frequently would you recommend a service technician synchronizing their user profile, and what's the value or benefit to them synchronizing their profile?
Right, good question. The synchronize is used to hook up and go back to central systems and get any updates to your profile. Also, if you've got a new installation of TechTool, you may be forced to synchronize. Also, every period of time that we require you to do a synchronize. So sometimes you're required to. Other than that, you really don't need to do a synchronize.
So there is a window, correct? I don't know what the window is, but after so many days, I believe a user would be required to synchronize their profile, whether they chose to or not, right? You have to do it after so many days. We mandate or require you to synchronize your profile.
That's correct. After we go in here, we get this warning message, and of course, everybody reads the warning message and understands it. They select yes, and then of course, TechTool will open up and run.
Now, it just while we're waiting for this to load, it just occurred to me we kind of, and it's my fault, we skipped over a very critical piece of information, the non-conspicuous envelope that Premium TechTool gets delivered to your dealership. You will receive, with all major updates to Premium TechTool, we're not talking about a network installed update. This is not something that you pull down through
That's
your
correct.
client update. The 2.8 is a major update which requires you to install via a USB drive, if you will. So you'll receive in an envelope with the TechTool label on it, the USB drive, which will contain Premium TechTool 2.8. So this is a major update. Now, one question I wanted to ask about the installation process. The best practice, James, do you feel, can 2.8 go right over the top of an existing Premium TechTool installation, or do you feel, would it be better to remove, let's say you had an existing TechTool already installed on your laptop, do you feel like there's any value in removing the old one prior to installing 2.8?
Good, that's a great question. So in the packet, we included instructions, and in the instructions, we stipulate it's better to uninstall previous versions of TechTool and then run what's called the cleanup tool, which is also included on that memory stick. What we found is that previous versions of TechTool sometimes contain files that get left behind and cause conflicts with the new files. So yes, we do recommend that you uninstall previous versions, then run the cleanup tool, and then run the installation.
So basically, starting with a clean installation, fresh installation of 2.8 is probably the best practice, right, for this new?
That's correct.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so you were in the process, I think, of logging in to the application.
Yes.
And looks like we're almost there.
Well, as things go in the real world, it appears to have been hanging up. And this leads us into a great segue. What do we do when TechTool hangs up? You know, sometimes this happens. Of course, we've done this before today. Everything's fine. We go live and it hangs up. So
Now, typically, I think a lot of technicians would probably just hit Control-Alt-Delete, or maybe even just do a hard restart or a hard reboot of their machine and see, try to find a way to close the program and then, reattempt to launch or load the program again. Do you have any best practices or any insight or guidance that you could share? What would you do in this scenario when your tool is actually frozen and you need to restart this process?
So this is a great example. We're going to go to what's called the TechTool Log Manager. That can be found in your Start and under TechTool. The TechTool Log Manager is a very useful tool for the technician. In this case, because it's still locked up, we could do the Control-Alt-Delete, but better, we need to go here and go to the BAF service. Hit Stop, and that closes TechTool. It closes down that communication service from the computer to the truck. And at the same time, once that's stopped, we're going to do clean up log files, and then we'll restart the BAF. We'll go back and start it again.
Can you show us real quick, how did you locate this log manager? Because that is a thing that we get asked frequently. If you call the help desk, sometimes they will walk them through this process, and so they know that this log manager exists, but maybe users are not entirely sure on how to locate it, or they can't remember how they were, guided to locating that. Can you just show us quickly how you would find?
I already have it attached to my taskbar, but to find it, you go down to Start, and you can go down and scroll and find TechTool. And underneath TechTool is the Log Manager. You can also just go to the search feature and type in LOG, and there's the Log Manager application.
And again, just like the Vocom configurator, this is part of the Premium TechTool suite. So if you have TechTool installed, you already have this log manager as part of your software application. Like, it will already be there on the laptop for you to locate and use.
Yep.
So you stopped the BAF service and you were...
Now we go to clean up log files.
Perfect.
And hopefully that takes care of any mess errors that we had previously from the previous session. And then we simply go back and hit Start the BAF. How often do I do this? It varies. I can go several days. I never have to do it. Other times, 2 or 3 times a day. It has to do with what I'm doing on the computer, what the truck's doing. Sometimes a technician may say, I just restart my computer. And that's okay too. But I like it if you can go here and clean up those log files.
There's definitely some benefit, right, in clearing out the log files. It will help maintain the speed and performance of Premium TechTool. So you're actually addressing a performance issue along with freeing up the machine and getting your software running again, right?
Sometimes, that's correct. Sometimes you start the computer and you try and start TechTool, and it'll say, services not started. That's exactly what we're talking about. Sometimes you just need to wait after you start the computer, allow those services to start on their own. But if not, you can go here and try and start yourself. So now that we've done that, we're going to go back and try and relaunch TechTool, and hopefully it behaves this time.
So again, this would be a perfect opportunity for us to maybe pause for a moment, and I would just like to check in with Larry Miller, who's here in the studio with us, to see if we have any questions coming in through the chat box. Larry, do we have any questions?
A few. Some of these revolve around the same subject, so we can bang out a couple of these at one time. If we have 15 to 20 techs using the Volcom mini adapters, will PTT see all of them? And how are they supposed to differentiate between their comm box and the other technician's comm box?
That's a great question, Larry. And to answer that simply, the Vocom Tough or the Vocom Mini is paired to that PC. So if you set it up correctly and you pair it, that means they're kind of attached and other people can see it, but they can't connect to it. We've actually got improvements for the configurator that'll come out very soon that's going to make that a little bit more seamless and a lot more stable. But today it works pretty well.
Jamie.
Yes,
if,
sir.
If you have the configurator tool up, maybe you can show them that screen and show them also the serial number that helps to identify which unit you're using and paired to on the PC.
So on the screen I'm showing right now, on the left-hand side, we can see Vocom 2, and that's the serial number of my adapter. Every adapter, whether it's a Tough or a Mini, has a unique serial number. And that's how I can identify which one I'm on. I can also go in and change the name of it so I can actually have my name pop up and I can see, oh, that's my adapter, and not try and connect to the wrong one. We did have some issues with that early on. We're addressing those, and the pairing was the key component that we've done recently. So down the left-hand side, you could have multiple adapters showing up. I think up to 8, Godfrey, does that sound right?
I believe that's correct.
So you'd want to select the one that's got your name on it or got your serial number on it and hook up to that one. But if you choose the wrong one, you cannot connect to it unless it's been paired.
And that serial number is going to be based on the unit itself at the bottom of the adapter. You should be able to see your serial number and then match that to the unit on your screen.
That's correct. Thank you, Godfrey. So now we're back to TechTool. TechTool's starting to behave a little bit, and I've got my work order number, and at the very top it says charge batteries. If we're hooked up to a truck and we leave the key on for a period of time, we can easily run the batteries down and have all kinds of problems related to low batteries. So we're suggesting that you hook up a small charger, maintain the batteries on the truck like we've done here today. So we'll go ahead and hit start work, and we let the rest of TechTool load. And again, it's pulling data from the vehicle. It's also pulling data from central systems about this truck. And what we're pulling, some of the things we're pulling, we'll compare the hardware and software numbers of what's in the truck to what's in central systems.
Now, Jamie, we get asked questions quite a bit about central systems. So when TechTool is communicating with central systems, obviously that's an important functionality for the tool. What sort of information is TechTool looking for when it goes to central systems?
Okay, that's a good question. We're looking at data about the emissions level, the electrical system, and also the control unit information. So if I open up this box, everything on the first column, product data, is from the vehicle, from the truck in this case. Here is the central data, and that shows we're reading from central data. And then we can see the hardware and software and see if there are any conflicts. In other words, what's in the truck is older than what's in central systems, or they're just not matched. When would that happen? Is if somebody physically replaced a control unit from one truck to another, you can easily get a mismatch.
Perfect. So central systems is something, there's also, we're going to be looking at that here in just a moment. There's actually a status indicator for central systems that's built into TechTool 2.8 that we can show you in a moment. You also, I think, mentioned product information. And so updating product information is something that, we talk about, and we also train technicians to do this frequently. And so I guess while we have you here, I wanted to ask, how frequently should a technician perform this product information update, and how critical is that for the performance of TechTool?
We go up here to the top left, TechTool, and update product information. That's what you're talking about. This is our diagnostic communication database. This is how TechTool is able to talk to a new truck or a truck with new software. So we get a brand new truck like we have here. If I don't have the latest product information, I may not be able to fully communicate with it. TechTool will, in fact, go out and try and do this automatically itself. If it's trying to connect to the truck and update product information at the same time, it can take quite a bit of time. So what we recommend is when you start work in the morning, once a day, before you connect to the truck, go up and update product information.
Perfect. So at the beginning of the shift, just go ahead and perform the update. And just a word of caution, this is based on my own personal experience, working at a training center where we have 30 laptops and we have to perform these updates. If you've never done the product information update on your laptop and you go to do it for the first time, it may be better if you did it at the end of your shift, because your laptop will be tied up for quite some time while these updates are installed. It literally could take, maybe up to 30 or 45 minutes in some cases if it's never been performed
Exactly.
previously.
But they are important. Like I said, new trucks, new software, we need this diagnostic communication database so we can communicate with these ECUs.
Since we're on that main screen and you went into the menu to show us where the update product information selection was found, I was wondering, could you just kind of briefly speak about some of the other items that are in that Tech Tool menu in the upper left-hand corner? Like,
Sure.
for example, we get questions from technicians frequently, like maybe they're working with a reliability engineer and tech support, and they've requested sensor data, but they want the sensor data to be in metric rather than US imperial. Is there a way to change that?
Right. Here under User Preferences, we can see languages, primary and secondary language, and units of measure. The secondary language is there in case a particular operation has not been fully translated into United States English, and sometimes you'll find it in UK English. So that's why I've got mine set where they're at, but maybe I'm speaking French or Spanish, I can go in and set that as well. And then the units of measure is right here.
And then also another thing that we get asked commonly, and I believe the answer is going to be found in this Tech Tool menu in the upper left-hand corner, network settings for Premium Tech Tool, and also communication adapter information, right? Configuration to work with Tech Tool. Is there a selection in the menu?
Yep. So Dave, if we look under settings, we can see our communication settings, our network connection, and system setup. If you hook up a Vocom adapter, especially a Vocom 2, it will automatically identify and select it. So if I'm on a different brand of adapter, hook up a Vocom, it may take it a few seconds, but it will identify it, and it will connect to that Vocom adapter.
Perfect.
Yep. It defaults to USB. As you can see, I've got it under Vocom 1 USB, but in reality, I'm connected to the Vocom Mini
Right.
wirelessly. Yep.
Right, yeah, I noticed that.
Also, we've got here this assist. This is something also that's brand new that we've not introduced yet, but in the very near future, we'll be able to go into Tech Tool and extract vehicle data and send it to Assist.
And so that would be useful.
As a check-in tool, or if the technician wants to update the case.
So very similar to maybe the functionality that we find today in, say, like the J Pro.
That's correct. We'll have that same functionality in Tech Tool very soon.
Wow, very cool. I was not aware of that, so I just learned something new here right in the moment.
Yep. And that button is right here. So if I push this button, I can actually send data to Assist right now.
Cool, very cool. So also, since we're in that horizontal menu up there, I just want to show the audience real quick the links. Can you just talk about the items that are found in that menu?
Sure. We have links or shortcuts to Dealer Portal for both Mac and Volvo. We also have what are called the Electrical Schematics Viewer. This is the complete list of all the schematics. And we have both Mac and Volvo. This is something we added to Tech Tools some time ago. It's just a value-added feature. So if you want the complete schematic, it's here. It's a quick, easy way to get to it. Also, we have a link to premiumtechtool.com.
So I noticed in the other horizontal menu that's in Tech Tool, there's obviously you can link to Impact. So all of your critical applications, Schematic Viewer, Truck Dealer Portal, the www.premiumtechtool website that you were just launching there in the background, Impact, all of these items are literally right at your fingertips when you're in this application. So it's almost acting as a hub, if you will, for all of your information, right, which is helpful for a technician.
That's correct. And once I've identified this truck and loaded this particular truck, I can simply go to Impact and launch Impact for this truck.
Right, for the unit that you're currently plugged into.
Yes.
Perfect. And so, yeah, you're like one step ahead of me here. I wanted to go to the website, which you've loaded in the background, which is perfect.
Okay.
The Premium Tech Tool website that we discussed earlier, this is the site that we're referring to, and I was wondering if you could just maybe give us a quick tour of just some of the more important places that technicians might find beneficial in this website.
Sure. So this is a public website available to everyone, premiumtechtool.com, and we put a lot of good information here about TechTool, operation, even how to purchase TechTool. Across the top center, we see that TechTool 2.8 deployment's underway. All dealers should have a copy now. Customers are getting it this week and probably a little bit next week. So the deployment of 2.8 should be completed very soon. This is a place I go look and I see what's the current released version of TechTool. I can see it right here. Also underneath it, it talks a little bit about a new feature that we've got within TechTool 2.8. We've changed the way we program control units. We're going to get more into that in a little bit, but there's some information here about it. Also, there's a really good video that explains the programming of control units from now on.
Yeah, for those of you that are tuned in, I know some of the stuff that we've been covering so far really is not new per se, right, for TechTool 2.8, but as Jamie just alluded to, there is a very new procedure for programming control modules that we're going to cover in just a moment, and I think you're really going to need to pay attention to that section of today's broadcast because it's radically different than what we've done in the past, and so I think you're going to find that to be of interest.
Just to hit the highlights real fast, we've got Order TechTool, so a customer can go in here and order TechTool. System requirements, this is important. So if you want to buy a new PC and you wonder, what type of PC should I purchase? There's information here about that, including the recommended and then the minimum hardware requirements. TechTool, as you probably know, takes a lot of resources to run it. And so we say the more RAM, the better. Then we have, go ahead, I'm sorry, Dave.
This also gives not only minimum but recommended hardware requirements, right?
Right.
So that's beneficial, right? So we actually recommend certain hardware specifications for optimum performance of the software, right? So that's important to note.
Yeah.
Could you show the participants the training? Yes, the training materials. And so there is, again, if you're not familiar with the site, if you have not been here, I would highly encourage that you go to this site. Service technicians that are in the audience, there is a list of videos and PDFs, training materials that will help you with so many different aspects of Premium Tech Tool, configuration, routines, how to interpret results. You'll find that to be a very valuable resource for you as a service technician. So if you've never been there, please take the time to go there and check that out when you have a moment.
We also have support information, frequently asked questions, and a contact us page. But I think we're going to try and move on a little bit and get back to TechTool.
Yeah, again, just wanted to show a brief overview of the website. It is an important resource to point out. Now that we're back in the application itself, let's go ahead and start covering some of the things that are fundamentally different about Premium Tech Tool 2.8. One of those primary differences is going to be the way the control modules are programmed, or electronic control modules have software loaded to them. And while we're waiting for this to go ahead and kind of get itself situated, let's check in with Larry one more time to see how we're doing with the questions for today's broadcast. Larry, do we have any questions coming in from the audience that require us to try to answer?
Oh yeah, we have quite a few. They're rolling in pretty steady. Just to grab as many as we can again. Again, at the end, all the questions will be answered. We're recording them all. We have one. Does the Volcom Mini have a dedicated wireless connection which can be maintained away from a Wi-Fi network, such as performing test drives or in large parking lots?
Great question, Larry. The answer is yes. So if I reopened the configurator, and it's grayed out right now because it's in use by TechTool, so I can't make changes. But right here under configuration, I've got two buttons, one for access point and one for infrastructure. Infrastructure means I'm connected to my Wi-Fi network. To go on a test drive, I would go here and change to the access point. And that would go directly from the adapter to my PC. And that's your test drive.
Okay, thank you. Next question. When you remove the old version of TechTool, will it auto-save the client ID?
I think the best solution is to always write down your client ID. I think it even says that in the removal.
Yeah,
says-
it does. I just had to go through this process recently. James, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you're removing Premium Tech Tool, it will actually physically provide you with the client ID that's on your machine. It will tell you to store that because it will be required for the new installation. So
Yes.
that's a pretty important detail to mention. That's a great question.
And the client ID is the ID of that PC, so it's important that we maintain that somewhere.
Yeah, it's unique to the laptop, right,
Yep.
that the software is being installed on.
So I'm back to programming, and we can see here, this screen looks like what we've had on 2.7, but when I open up the Program Electronic Control Unit, this is where things change. I open this up, and now it says checking for software updates. So we're querying Central Systems, and we're looking, are there any software replacements for the current software on the truck? In other words, do we have new software in the replacement chain for that truck?
Now, this is a big difference because in the previous version of Premium Tech Tool, again, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but to identify if there was a software update available, you literally had to go to each control module and check individually one at a time to see if there were software updates available for the control modules that were in the truck. And you're telling me that this is doing all of that in one step.
That's correct. So we've got a big time saver here for you. We're checking it automatically, and we're telling you, in this particular case, there are no software updates available. And what does that mean exactly? It means I don't need to program or go check and chase down to see if there are any updates available. This truck is up to date.
Now, I'm not going to throw it to Larry, but I'm sure there's a lot of technicians out there questioning how would you go about programming a control module, because again, a lot of times in the diagnostic process, if we're working with tech support or reliability engineer, if they're instructed to reflash the software in the control module as part of a diagnostic strategy, how would they achieve that? Because previously we were able to select a single control module and we could reload the software to that electronic control unit. How would we do that in 2.8?
That's correct. So there's two ways to do it. We can go down to replace hardware. And we've had this there all along. But you go into replace hardware, and when you get to the step where you physically want to replace the hardware, you skip over it. And then you would just turn the key off, turn the key back on, and go ahead and reload that same software.
So if there's no software updates showing on the other screen, but for some reason you need to load a piece of software in an effort to try to diagnose a problem or you've been instructed to do so by tech support, the best way to do that, based on what you've just shared with us, is to go to the hardware screen, pick the module in question, step through the replace hardware routine in Tech Tool, but just don't perform the steps where it's telling you to actually replace the hardware.
That's correct. And those cases are rare, but they do happen. It could be that tech support has changed a parameter on the back end. It could be you've got a truck that's stuck in inducement and you can't exit inducement. It's in derate. And you can go here and reload the software and sometimes come out of inducement. The other way to do it is program with stored software. We've had this for a long time, and you can still do that. It has not changed. Go in and select your control module, download the software, then you can physically go to the truck and update that program.
Perfect. So two different ways, right, that we can load software, using obviously the programming control module, the replace hardware, and then also what about the managed software functionality in Tech Tool?
So the managed software For managed software new, it's OBD 13 and newer. Managed software is for earlier trucks. So you would select managed software new and download the software, and then you would come back to here, and it would be a program with stored software. So if I click on it now, it's going to tell me there's no stored software. So I would have to go to that managed software new, download it, and then come back and program it.
Pull down the file that you want for the specific module that you're trying to program and then go and load it that way. Perfect.
Exactly. And that's probably one of the biggest changes that you'll notice in 2.8 is that programming feature has changed. Now, a lot of guys have already complained about it, but if you stop and think about it, because TechTool is searching for updates automatically, it saves you a lot of time. You don't have to search for them yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a big time savings on the front end of that, right? Not having to check each individual control module individually is going to save a lot of time for a service technician who's out there looking for software updates. Also, there's some new tests, some new routines I know that have been added to 2.8. Maybe not specifically 2.8, but in our last Academy Live episode, we talked about calibrating front active steering, which has been kind of a big, a popular topic, I guess, here lately. And I know that 2.8 has those capabilities. I think it might have been added to a later version of 2.7. But there's also a new routine that I wanted to cover, and it's an air system leakage test. Could you maybe share with us what that test is for and what is the purpose of that test? Because I know it's been added specifically to 2.8.
Yes. So when you get a truck and the customer complains, I've got an air leak, you have to stop and ask yourself, how big is the leak? So now we have a test, a routine that you can go through and run this air system leakage test. And what it's doing is looking at the air pressure drop over time. So we look at it and we compare it and we set a value saying this air leak is excessive, it should be fault traced, you should find it, fix it, or no, this isn't bad, move on.
So it's a little bit more scientific. I know a lot of times for warranty, we're dealing with air leaks. It's probably hard to quantify, right, the severity of an air leak. So this is specifically putting a quantity of air to a very defined window of time, right?
Exactly.
So we're quantifying specifically how bad the leak is. Wow, interesting.
So we like to think it's a really good test. Time will tell, of course, but it's pretty straightforward to run. In this case, I can't run it because my truck is low on air. So that's where you start.
There's another new feature that I'm curious, and I know this is probably going to be a little bit difficult to demonstrate live to the audience, but correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard somewhere that this new version of TechTool, there's some sort of a thing that's been added to the DTC information that will tell a technician which code he should focus on or which DTC, I guess, specifically is turning on the malfunction indicator lamp, right? In the event that a truck shows up, we get this complaint a lot like, oh, the check engine light's on. They go in, they find a list of faults. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what the starting point should be. Could you, I don't know if that's something you can demonstrate, but could you at least just speak or I guess maybe explain that a little bit further for us?
Sure. So our DTCs can be a little bit complex, especially the ones that are related to the emissions of the vehicle. So it's not just a active, inactive code. It has to be active, and it has to have the monitor has to run for a period of time so we can validate that yes, this is a fault, or no, it's not. And different things make the meal come on. So I've chosen a code here. I hope I've chosen the correct one. We'll go here and look under detailed information. And here we can see a lot of good details. Confirmed, it says true. So we can see here confirmed true. That means it's seen it more than once. And that code's been confirmed as being a problem.
So pending is like initial detection, right? Confirmed is like 2 consecutive detections.
Right.
In the drive cycles.
And I think that varies, Dave, depending upon which system you're looking at. So it's a little bit vague, but I always look at confirmed is very important. If it's confirmed, then that could be a problem. But then down here at the bottom, I've got warning indication requested. So if we're at OBD 19 and newer, this could show us if the mill's on. So if I look at especially an engine code and it says warning indication requested, that's your mill lamp. In this case, it's false. So this code did not turn on the mill lamp.
And that's important for technicians to understand when they're trying to determine which DTC is actually lighting the light that the driver is complaining about, and they find a list of DTCs in the truck, and they're trying to identify which one they need to address first or which one is probably the more critical. That's an important piece of information that they need to be able to identify.
Exactly. So you may notice here too, we've got some new and varied codes in this particular truck. We can see I've got front active steering, which is that new system we talked about before. And the DTC has the letter C in front of it. C is for chassis. And then we also could have a P for powertrain. And we see here is a U code, that's communication. That could be power, ground, or data link.
Perfect.
So these codes actually kind of tell us which system they're part of.
Perfect. So we're kind of getting close to the end of the time limit that we have for today's broadcast, and so there's still a few more things that I'd like to cover. I want to make sure that we get those, we're able to touch those before we leave today's episode. We get asked a lot, James. Premium Tech Tool has been out since USO 7. You know, version 1 point whatever was released when the USO 7 trucks hit the market with DPF technology. Obviously, today we're talking about 2.8, the latest version of Premium Tech Tool. We get asked questions. I mean, is there anything else that Volvo's working on from a diagnostic standpoint? Is there, any other tools that your group specifically are developing or getting ready to release? Is there anything that you could share with us?
Yes, I think so. Before we go there, let's also think about Tech Tool. When we finish with the truck, it's important to always click Finish Work. This allows Tech Tool to close itself and wrap everything up, close it properly, so the next time I go to another truck, I get a fresh read, and there's no data from the previous truck. It took about 2 or 3 seconds, everything's closed. Now I can close Tech Tool.
I'm glad you reminded all of us of that. I have to admit that I am one of the ones who's guilty of walking away or closing Tech Tool before I hit the Finish Work button, so Thank you for reminding us of that important step.
So what we have coming out in the future, we're looking at a new platform for diagnostics and services. We're looking at something that we title so far as the Diagnostic Suite. The Diagnostic Suite is simply a compilation of applets or apps, and we can run these on a tablet, a telephone if you want. I'm doing it on a PC. Log in here. I'm still connected to the truck. I'm still using that same Vocom Mini. It will work with this as well with Tech Tool. So I close Tech Tool first before I can open this. Here I can see 4 different apps. On the far left is the active steering calibration. This one actually works today. We'll be in distribution very soon. And this allows us to calibrate the steering angle sensor and the FAS, the front active steering module, at the same time.
Well, that's really interesting distinction, because previously you had to use ACOM, right, to configure the steering angle sensor.
That's correct.
And then you would have to switch to Premium Tech Tool to configure the front sensor, the front active steering sensor. So you were literally using 2 applications, logging in and out of both of them to complete this configuration process. With this app, you're saying that we can do both of those simultaneously in one step.
That's correct, and that works today. So today you can use Tech Tool, you can use Bendix ACOM, and that works fine. A little bit cumbersome, time consuming. This does them together at the same time. I can't show it here live today because I have to run the truck to make this happen.
Yeah, and we're indoors, right? So
We're
that's a little
indoors, exactly.
challenging with no exhaust system.
This is just the start. We've got the active steering's working. We're working on these other 3 behind it. So hopefully we'll see some deliveries very soon.
And that suite that you're referring to that you just showed us there live on the screen, I mean, that's something that is going to be released in the near future for dealerships to utilize?
I think so. I don't have a timeline yet, but we hope very soon.
Okay, Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know sometimes people are hesitant to maybe show things that they're working on or things that haven't been completed yet, but I mean, that's very exciting and it's very relevant to the topic that we're covering today. So I thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
I want to go to Larry Miller one last time just to see if there's any critical questions that we should maybe try to address before we end today's session. Larry, is there any questions from the audience that you'd like to?
Yeah, but we have time for maybe one or two more. One question we have is regarding the programming, the software programming. What if you need to install an older version of a software into a control unit? With the older version, you can force it. Can you do this with the new version of TechTool?
So we like to think those cases are very rare. So what we have within our system, our central systems, we have a tool that looks at all the software in the truck and compares them, making sure that the engine is compatible with the transmission, for example, and that the vehicle ECU is compatible with the cluster. And that's called the configurator. So if you try and push software back in the engine module, you can actually cause conflicts with other ECUs. So we like to keep those to a minimum. If you have to push it back, that has to be done from tech support. They can go into the configurator and they can push the software back to a previous version. But as a general rule, we're getting away from that.
I was going to say I'm by no means a legal expert, but I think there's definitely within the emission regulations, right, that presents a challenge for us sometimes. Moving forward isn't so difficult, but when you try to go backwards to a previous software version, sometimes we run into restrictions, or maybe there's reasons there why we're not able to do that, whether it's a compatibility issue or maybe it may be an emissions issue that won't let us go back to a previous software file.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, again, I'd just like to say all of you who tuned in today and participated in today's broadcast, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. I'd also like to thank you for sending your questions in and interacting with us through the chat box. Again, all of those questions are going to be captured, and so we will be taking the time to provide responses for all of the questions that you have sent in. Those most likely will be available within the next week or two. I'd also like to mention that today's broadcast has been recorded, and so we will be uploading a finished video file from today's Academy Live that will be posted to Truck Dealer Portal. So if there's any fellow technicians or other people in your shop that maybe you feel would benefit from seeing some of the information that we discussed in today's episode, or maybe you just want to go back and watch it again a second time, you'll be able to do that here shortly once we get the file link posted in TDP. That's all we have for today's episode. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your participation. Please stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you in future upcoming episodes of Trucks Academy Live. Thank you.